First of all, good morning. Appreciate y'all being on here. Hope everyone is staying safe and healthy during these times. I wanted to start off by just offering not only myself but our program's sympathy and condolences to the Jim Galuski, to his family. Just a tremendous mountaineer, served our football program for 5 decades, and so just want his family to know that we're thinking about them. This is week 6 of operating remotely, operating our entire organization and program remotely. I'm proud of how our staff and our players have handled everything. These are tough times, and it's tough. So much of what our players do is dictated by structure, and we try to do the best we can given the circumstances. That's kind of been our motto: do the best you can with what you have available, and that's what we're trying to strive to do. It's our focus throughout this, and this, I think, this is the 3rd time we've met like this, and it's been and really hadn't changed. Our focus has been on players' health and wellness, creating and maintaining a routine and schedule that's built around their rest, their academics, their nutrition, meetings, and then workouts and football skill work that we can't mandate or monitor. And then the last thing is just accountability. Is trying to continue to build a culture of accountability. Academics are a priority right now. We're in the last week of classes. We have finals next week. Brittany Odell and her staff have really done a great job throughout. We've maintained having tutoring sessions. The academic advisors have been in daily contact with our players. And like I said, I can't praise her and her staff enough. Big weekend for several of our former Mountaineers with the NFL draft and neat experience, seeing that done virtually. I'm sure many of you witnessed. I want to congratulate the guys that were chosen and then signed free agent deals. Start with Kenny Robinson. Hadn't really talked about him. Maintained contact with him throughout, and happy for him. I thought he did a really good job with the article he wrote on the Players Tribune. Took ownership, and I'm happy he gets a second chance. I think people deserve second chances. He paid his price, went to the XFL, and now he's got an opportunity to pursue his dreams, and we support him in that. Extremely happy for Colton McKivitz and his family. I thought that was him going. I think it's a great place to go. I think what they do offensively really matches his skill set, and he did a tremendous job for us, and I think he'll have a long NFL career. And then the guys that signed free agent contracts, Keith Washington, Akeem Bailey, Josh Norwood, and George Campbell. Those guys are all deserving. They played really well during their senior years, made huge contributions here. And I hope, and I'm hopeful. I don't know. I don't make those decisions, but I'm hopeful several other of our guys get that opportunity to really showcase their skills at the next level. Really enjoyed over the last few weeks. Several of you all have done stories and whether it's social media recognition. I know our own people have done a great job, and I thought our own people in-house did a tremendous job with our virtual spring game. But many of you have written stories, and I've really enjoyed watching and learning kind of about the tradition of our program. I've known the dates and I've known the wins, but I didn't really know the stories behind them. So I've enjoyed that and got a ton of positive feedback on social media and email and other things about how our fan base has really enjoyed that as well. It's, I appreciate our players, our former players, the guys that created that tradition. They've been really giving of their time. You've seen several of our NFL players, our former NFL players, have joined the position groups on Zoom. They had a huge alumni Zoom meeting. I think Pat McAfee talked about that. I kind of welcomed them and had a couple comments, and I got out of the way and got off because I thought that was kind of their sacred time. And from what I understand, that lasted hour and a half, 2 hours, and they really had a good time with that. So I appreciate those guys really paying it forward. Recruiting continues to be going well. Right now, our coaches, our on-field staff is doing we're virtually recruiting. You've seen the graphics go out. And what we're trying to do is during this virtual spring recruiting, spring evaluation usually goes April 15th to May. We're trying to cover our areas, obviously, via phone and doing some virtual tours and those things during this time. I know several of you have, just like I have over the last 24 hours, have seen the working committee release some of the NIL discussion points. I've seen those too. This is something that we've been preparing for within our program probably for over the last 6 months. And we've got a really good plan, an educational plan of how we're going to deal with it within our program. We've got a partnership that we're going to announce here in the next week or so that we're excited about. And so when we do that, obviously you all be the first ones to know. And then finishing up, I remain hopeful and cautiously optimistic about playing football this fall. We've had meetings with the Big 12 Conference, and so again, I think hopeful and cautiously optimistic. So with that, I will open up to questions. Greg?
Yep, you already know. Go ahead, Greg.
So Neal, your last statement was sort of part of my question in terms of what are you guys being told about if you're going to play at normal time this fall, and even if and when practices and workouts can start this summer? Yeah,
so I think what we've done as a league, and I really think we've done a nice job led by Commissioner Bowlesby and our athletic directors in the Big 12 Conference, is taking kind of a wait and see approach and not getting too far out in the future, because I think everybody that's going through this is kind of dealing with it. And I think where we're making mistakes is making declarations for really far down the road. So we haven't done that. Everything that we've done in our league right now is focused on that May 31st. And I think Shane, who leads the football oversight committee, they've been commissioned with figuring out a return to play, what that looks like. And I think they're working on that. And so right now what we're doing is, again, we're hopeful, cautiously optimistic about playing the season on time. And I'm sure it won't be a normal fall. What we thought about, or when we think about a normal fall football Saturday, I'm not sure we're going to have that. But I am cautiously optimistic and hopeful that we are going to play. And again, I think our league has done a nice job as far as not being reactive to everything that's going on. And Commissioner Bowlesby's done a good job leading us.
All right, your next question here from John. Go ahead, John.
I got a couple here. One off topic. I'm curious if you've been watching Last Dance on ESPN. Did you grow up a Jordan fan? And then the second thing, some of the injured guys you've had, like Taj and some of the, how have they been progressing? How have you been able to keep track of them because they're not around to do rehab and so forth?
Yeah, so I've definitely, probably like the rest of anybody that's interested in sports, we've had two major events that we've watched. We've watched the NFL draft and then the Last Dance, and I think that's encouraging to whenever we do return to sports on TV. I think they're going to get record numbers. But yeah, it's been fun to watch the Last Dance just because is Jordan's heyday, and I was a Jordan fan, and I'm appreciative of anybody that is elite, and I think people forget how much of a competitor he was and how elite he was. So I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed it for a couple of reasons. I've enjoyed because there's something on TV, first of all, but I've enjoyed it because it's giving you some backstories. It's giving you some real look at how Phil managed those personalities from as a coach. I appreciate that, and that's been kind of a learning tool. It's also been a nice flashback for me because that 96, 97, 98, Jordan's second run were really my sophomore, senior year in high school. And I can remember Jordan hitting the shot to beat the Jazz. And I'll never forget it. We were and sometimes my memory works like this. A lot of people remember, like, my mom can tell you exactly where she was when Kennedy got shot, and most people can remember 9/11. I can remember 9/11, that deal, but I can remember important sports deals too. Like, but I can remember I was standing at the equipment door in Commonwealth Stadium at Kentucky, following my senior in high school, preparing to play in the Kentucky-Tennessee All-Star football game in the summer of '98, and watching through the equipment equipment window when Jordan hit that shot. And so it's been a nice little flashback to kind of those years for me, and just going through that and reminiscing a little bit. The second question, John, that you had, and I'm glad you didn't ask me about records, because I'm not in that deal. I missed that age bracket, John, so I'm glad you're not asking me about records on social media. But Taj and VD are both recovering from lower leg injuries. Van Darius has done tremendous in his rehab, and Taj has done well as well. But Van Darius is much ahead of schedule right now. And Vince Blankenship and his group, they're able to do virtual rehab and some other things that really have continued that progress. And then we've got some shoulder guys that had surgery that they're recovering, and they're on pace. They're all doing well, and they've progressed into normal type of workouts now.
All right, your next question here is from Kevin Kender. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, Coach, there's been a lot of discussion about, what you have to do to get ready to play. And it seems to me it's split into two things. Number one is conditioning, getting everybody back together. But then number two, actual football practice. If you had to cut that down on the second part, would you be willing to go back and, if it meant getting in a whole season, saying, okay, we're only going to really have a week or two on the field? Or is there a minimum amount of actual football you need to practice to get back in that shape?
Yeah, so I think, and this is where the oversight committee, which Shane leads, and they're dealing with a multitude of people on this, and one of them is a group that's all health, medical, and wellness related. And I think we'll see. I think everybody's trending toward this 6-week return to play now, and that gives you some time for your strength conditioning, and then you kind of gradually incline into football work. And so that's I'm fine with that model. I'm kind of in the deal is I think that 6 week is really, I think it's fair. And I want to say this too. I think that most things that are being done during this time have been really equitable across Power 5 football, which is important. And I think the return to play model will be equitable. And I'm like most coaches, I just want to know what it is so we can start the planning process of what that looks like.
All right, your next question from Derek Red. Go ahead, Derek.
Hey, Neal. You were talking about being 6 weeks in. How far out do you guys plan when you kind of go through this kind of the altered version of your, spring season, off season? And how often do you go to revisit that plan the longer you guys are in this kind of revised scenario?
Derek, you asking about in a regular situation or like this situation?
This situation.
So here's how we attack this. We basically, initially, when it first came down, we took it on a week by week. When it became evident, and the conference came out with the May 31st, then we planned through May 31st. And then as it's gone on, we have gone on and stretched our calendar through the end of June. So that's what we're working off right now, is through the end of June. So what we've done is we've staged, just like, even though we can't track the workouts, Mike Joseph and his staff is able to give these workouts. So the workouts that he's handing out, or, I think it's via an app or something, whatever he's doing, is those workouts build up into a potential return, in July sometime, and then leading into a season starting on time. And so, because that's the direction we're under right now, so we're planning for that. And we're doing the same thing from a football standpoint. We're planning on, all right, when we get back in, working off a mid-July or a July return, we're working off what's that look like? What are our expectations for our players as far as schematics, fundamentals, all that kind of thing. We're just kind of building into it. But that's kind of how we're operating. We've got we are planned out through the end of June right now. If we need to adjust, we will. I think one thing that the happy medium in this whole deal is like, my antenna is up for the mental health and well-being of our players. Like, that is and just because we are spread across, everybody's situations are different. A lot of our guys are riding emotional roller coasters. And, you just think about it, you're out on your own. Now you're back in your parents' home and it's been a couple years, or just different things that your family may be going through, people out of work, different things like that. So our guys are dealing with so much. So what I try to do is really stay in tune. And if I feel, and this is the same way with staff, if I feel frustration levels or I feel people are getting into a negative place, then we cut back a lot, and that's kind of, I think you got to kind of get a temperature for almost each day how it's going, or how each week how it's going, and then be able to adjust your plan.
We're actually going to take a question here from Bob Hertzel. Assuming you can start on time or almost on time and get in a full preseason and full season, how will you define a successful second season? Certainly, you won't be judging it on the win-loss record alone, correct?
I thought Hertzel was getting ready to come on this Zoom. I was going to be I was really going to be surprised, first of all. And then second of all, then I was going to talk about how everybody's just gotten these technological advances down pat. So I was sitting there trying to think, Grant, if he was going to be on Zoom or if this was a telephone question. So re-ask that thing.
All right. Assuming you start on time or almost on time and get in a full preseason and a full season, how will you define a successful second season? It certainly won't be judged on win and loss record alone, correct?
Well, all we've talked about is improvement. We're looking for improvement. So we're looking for improvement across the board, offense, defense, special teams. We feel like if we make the improvements that we've really been stressing since January, then it'll show up in that win-loss deal. But, as far as expectations and all that kind of stuff, we're just wading through it. I mean, honestly, I'm focused on, we need to win. We need to win remote, operating the program remotely. If we can win during this time, what does that look like? I think it's everybody staying healthy. I think it's everybody staying safe. I think it's growing our relationships. I think it's doing well academically. I think it's making sure that we continue from a nutrition standpoint, maintaining our body weights when we left. I think it's being in some type of shape for when we return. We don't have to go backwards. We can hit the ground running wherever we get back. So we're focused on winning this time right now, and then when we actually get back into the football aspect, we'll start worrying about that then.
All right. Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, Coach. Now that you've been doing this remote work for a couple of weeks, what do you think works well? What do you think still needs work? And when everything returns to normal, do you see anything kind of sticking around?
Yeah, I think this, working remotely, I mean, there's some positives to it. You get everybody involved, getting more family time, which I think is important. A lot of this time I wouldn't give back. I've had more time with my wife and my kids than I maybe ever have, and I've enjoyed that. And I think there's been some great benefits for me personally. I think that understanding how to stay connected even though you're apart. I've said it, I think, a couple of different times, is there's some things that I've learned during this process, both in recruiting and then operating with our players and our staff, that we'll take this with us when we get back, whatever our new normal is. Some of these Zoom meetings are good, multiple FaceTime calls, things like that. I think this one thing that really sticks out as I bounce around and go to our position meeting and then spend some quality time with our quarterbacks, is this from a coach standpoint has made us better teachers. And it's allowed us to really kind of inspect what we expect and be better at that. How do we quiz? How do we make sure that these guys are getting the material we're trying to teach? So I do think that as coaches, we've improved as teachers, and we'll continue to grow by doing this virtual learning.
All right, your next question from John. Go ahead, John.
Curious, Coach, to get your thoughts on the name, image, and likeness and how that could maybe impact recruiting. For instance, you say School X could say, listen, you could come to our school, we can guarantee you so many endorsements or whatnot. Does that impact just maybe a small number of prospects? Have you talked about that with some coaches? What's some of your thoughts on that?
So, John, honestly, still learning. I felt like you kind of feel momentum growing, and I could feel the momentum growing, and just conversations with Shane and just people in the profession. So you can feel the momentum growing. So what we did is we tried to get in front of that, and we've partnered with an individual that we'll announce here pretty soon, and it's about education and kind of educating our players how to take advantage of that, how to create a brand, what's a brand look like, those type of things. So that's something that we got ahead of, and we feel really good about our plan about doing that. But as far as how to take advantage of recruiting and all that stuff, I don't really know. I'm not as educated as I need to be right now. Kind of waiting. I was kind of waiting for these recommendations to come down. And I think it's important to note these recommendations, they haven't passed yet. But I read through them last night, read through them again this morning, and we'll continue to do that. I do think there's some potential benefits here in West Virginia just because we don't have any professional sport competition and we're the only Power 5 team. So I do think there's some things that we can use. I do think there's some things that are marketable, that our players are marketable. Our brand is strong. I did notice that the branding of your school is going to be not allowed in that, which I do understand. I don't think it's going to be a windfall for everybody on our roster or everybody on the basketball team. I don't see that happening. But I'm just kind of learning as we go on it.
All right, your next question from Mike Kazaza. Go ahead, Mike.
John stole my thunder a little bit here, but I'll kind of keep on it if that's all right. When you're exploring these things and you're kind of coming up with a plan, there are so many perceived negatives about this and how it may be corrupting and bad influences and all that. Are there any like shadows out there that kind of have you spooked as somebody who's in charge of whatever may or may not happen here?
Yeah, I think it's because you don't know what the parameters are, and then when you get the parameters, how do you monitor that? You know what I mean? Like who's in charge of monitoring? Is that going to be part of the head coach responsibility? Because how am I going to monitor if they have an agent? You know, there's a bunch of different. There's a lot more. I have a lot more questions on it than answers. I understand why we went down this path. I do get it. Again, I think it can be beneficial and to some extent. I just don't know how you manage it. And again, I'm just not educated enough on it. We will, and we'll figure it out. But right now, I'm just not probably educated enough on it to know how it's going to be regulated, how it's going to be monitored, all those type of things.
Go ahead, Greg Hunter.
Neal, in terms of the virtual recruiting, as you said, you've been into that a couple of weeks now, sort of, doing the evaluation work. So your thoughts on how that's gone generally, and then also, I mean, those of us that report on it, you're still getting commitments. Did you expect that would continue during this phase, or are there things that have surprised you as you move through this?
The virtual recruiting, we had a plan once this kind of all went down middle of March, and our plan was to continue on with the people that have been on our campus multiple times and guys that were close to making decisions to continue to move down that path with them. And I think our staff's done a nice job with that. We've maintained really good relationships. And then the second thought was, okay, how do we take our program to those student athletes and their families that were planning on coming during the spring and early part of the summer to see us? And so what we've done is we've done virtual tours. We've done kind of infomercial type videos on who we are. We try to take each of our important aspects of our program to the student athlete and their families, whether it's nutrition, strength conditioning, academics, facilities, all those type of things. We've tried to take to them, and then we've continued to build those relationships. In the hope is when the dead period's over that we can get those individuals on campus. Really, the only thing that's been surprising This has reaffirmed that peer pressure is real in recruiting. You see this. I think people make decisions based on kind of the momentum of social media. That reaffirmed that. I kind of felt like that all along, but it reaffirmed that. The second thing, the only real surprise of this is some of these kids that are making decisions without ever stepping foot on campus. And I've said this publicly, I said a couple of them when I have one-offs with each of you, is it'll be interesting to me when signing date rolls around, how many of these commitments of guys that are committing that haven't been on that campus, how many of those stick? I think most of the commitments, if you look, you always read about decommits and all that kind of stuff, but there's a high percentage of guys that commit, those things stick. And they stick because most people make educated decisions. They've been on campus multiple times. They know what they're and all that kind of stuff. It'll be interesting to me is how many of these commitments that will stick that haven't been on campus and haven't been around the coaches, haven't been around the team. That'll be interesting to me when all this is said and done.
All right, go ahead, Jerry.
Good morning, Coach. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I was just wondering, I know you can't mandate or monitor your guys while they're working out at home. But what kind of creative things have you seen them doing to try to get themselves ready for the season? I know of one offensive lineman at another school built a punching bag in his backyard. What kind of things are guys doing at home on their own?
Yeah, you're seeing all kinds of creativity. I was having some fun on social media watching those guys, and then the NCAA passed this rule where you can't like or comment. I don't know how the hell they're going to monitor that, but they made this rule early over the weekend where you can't like or comment. So I've been seeing some stuff, but I can't have fun with it anymore. So, but we've seen it's been fun, man. It's you see people that have converted their garages. You see one of our guys took some 2x4s and made a weight bench. I've enjoyed some of our the public service announcements some of our players have made. You're seeing some of our players fill up book bags and different things to use as weight. It's been it's been fun to watch, and not only on our team but across sports in general. You're seeing all kinds of unique ways to train.
Go ahead and take these last two questions here. First one from Mike Kazaza.
Neal, have you paid any attention to the state's plan for reopening the state and trying to figure out timetables that may affect you and your program, or even just the fall sports or the university at large?
Yeah, I've been following. I've tried to keep up as much as I can as far as with the news. I think probably just like a lot of you all, I've tried to keep up, but not be obsessive about it, because I think you can get in a bad place if you're doing too much. I'll tell you what I've done is I try to watch Fox, CNN, and then the local. And I figured somewhere there's a medium. If I can take all three of them in and kind of filter them all down, there's somewhere a medium in that. And then I've been keeping up with the governor's daily updates. I've been keeping up with what Clay has had to say. So, and then trying to get that information. So yeah, I think we got to be in tune with it. The things that are important it's all important. I don't mean that, but the thing that I've kind of watched is, when do gyms open up? I think that's something that is important for our players. That's a key component. And when does that open up? Are our numbers still declining? Because I think as the numbers continue to decline, then we have a better opportunity to gather. So I don't have all the answers for it, and I'd be lying to you if I told you I understand it. What I'm doing is I'm staying at home and doing what I'm supposed to do.
All right, last question from John, then we'll kick it to Coach Montoro. Go ahead, John.
Just curious, I remember back in February during signing day, you talked about hanging on to a scholarship or two to use to evaluate your guys during the spring to figure out what you needed. Of course, you didn't have spring practice, so you weren't able to do that. Does that change how you use those? What's your thoughts on how you're going to use those remaining scholarships?
We've got 2, possibly 3, but we got at least 2. I think the spots where we have needs, and I've said this before, I think offensive line, like to maybe potentially add an interior defensive lineman, and then we need maybe another. We're thin in the secondary, and so those are the 3 areas that if we can find the right fit, that we'd like to add to our roster whenever we do return.
Okay, thanks, Coach, very much for your time, and thanks to all the media for being on the call today.
Hey, Monty, hey, let me close this real quick. First of all, I appreciate y'all getting on here, and let's encourage all our people. We'll get through this. You know, I think it's we'll get through it and be positive. These are tough times, but we will get through it. I also want to mention the WVU 5K that our MAC people are doing. So if I know some of you all are in some tip-top physical shape there, so I look forward for y'all joining up too and going virtual 5K on us. But it's for our student athletes, and we're getting really good feedback on that. So I wanted to endorse that. Y'all have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine, man. It's nice out.